Rohrabacher of California.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being with us today and putting yourself through this.
Thank you.
Let me just note that fixing responsibility, which we're trying to do today, and identifying bad policy and mistakes is the way that democracies fix problems. It is not all politics. It's how we do things here to make it better. So none of us should at all apologize for trying to get to the nitty-gritty. And let me just note that Assistant Secretary of State Lamb testified here in Congress that budget considerations played absolutely no role in her decision. It was her decision, not yours, but you approved of, but her decision as to what the level of security would be there at Benghazi. So any suggestion that this is a budget issue is off base or political. Madam Secretary, you told the Senate this morning that you learned of the attack around 4 p.m. On that day, and you were involved widely in the coordinated response, which included the Department of Defense, the White House, but did not speak to the President until later that evening. When did you talk to the President?
Two things. On the first point you made, Congressman, the ARB disagreed with that and did find that budget issues were at stake.
Well, she testified under oath, and it was...
Well, you know, that's why you have an independent group like an ARB. That's why it was created, to look at everything. So I think it's...
Everybody has their own...
right. I think it's important, though,
to do here. But
and I would urge...
What about when you saw the President? When did you see the President?
I talked to the President at the end of the day, but I had been in constant communication with the National Security Advisor. I'd been on secure video conferences with high-level officials in the White House, in the Defense Department.
Secretary Lamb, the lady we're talking about, did testified that she had actually witnessed this in real time, the attack in real time on a monitor. At any time, did you see the initial attack on a monitor? Or the President?
Congressman, there was no monitor. There was no real time. We got the surveillance videos some weeks later. That was the first time we saw any video of the attack.
So there was
I think there was a misunderstanding. I think that perhaps, I'm just trying to clarify this. I may be going beyond my brief here, but I think perhaps what she meant was it was on an open, she was talking to test people who were trying to understand what was going on.
Well, I will have to say that Admiral Mullen, in briefing us, suggested that they had seen some kind of video, and that within a few moments it was very clear that this was a very coordinated terrorist attack and not some demonstration that had gone awry.
Well, I think the surveillance video, which some of you may have seen in a classified setting, does demonstrate what happened that night.
As you were dealing with the crisis as it went on, did you think or act on the basis that this was a film protest gone out of control, and when you briefed the President, did you tell him that? Or did you tell him, which Admiral Mullen suggests you knew by then, that this was a well-planned and executed terrorist attack? Which was the President told?
Well, first of all, I said the very next morning that it was an attack by heavily armed militants. The President said that morning it was an act of terror. At the same time, however, I was dealing with protests against our facilities that were clearly connected to that video.
Right. Yeah.
So we were managing a number of such
Let's just say that
events.
you noted that, and it can be, people do this so that you can say that you said it, but the emphasis, we all remember what the emphasis was, over and over and over again. It was repeated that we had enraged the Islamic terrorists, which, by the way, what's that do? When you say that we enraged the Islamic terrorists, that means we're at fault. They're not at fault. And then to look and see that the only people that I know who are in jail right now is the filmmaker. Isn't this a little disconcerting?
Well, first, Congressman, I want to be clear that, of course, it was a terrorist attack. The very next day, I called it an attack by heavily armed militants on our compound. I think there is still, however, questions about exactly what caused it, who the attackers were. The ARB, after months of research, said the picture is still very complicated,
Well,
and I think it's worth members looking at both the unclassified and classified ARB with that in mind.
Thank you.
Mr. Meeks of New York.
And you can continue to watch this hearing with Secretary of State Hilary Clinton over on our companion network, C-SPAN. This expected to